What's up, everybody? This is Zach with Nerd Cave News, and I'm joined with the man, the myth, the legend, all that jazz, Malone.
Okay, I was waiting for it. I was just like, hold on. I was about to introduce myself, and then I was like, wait a minute, this is our weekly segment again. That just sounds, I'm sorry, that sounds boring to me.
Man, I can't help that Butters Whoopstar Washington is like my peak right now.
I was about to say, you already set the bar here. Now you're only doomed to fail.
No, I'm not, man. I got more. I can't talk about them, but I got more. Yeah. I got more.
Gotta have a reason for people to keep tuning in.
Yeah. Okay. All that jazz. Malone. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Guys.
He's like, I was waiting for the nickname.
Dan gave you one. Derek Weenie Hut Jr. Daniel.
Oh my God. Weenie Hut Jr.
So guys, welcome to our show. This is Nerd Cave News, the gaming news show that you need in your life. You just sit down. You can watch us on Twitch live each and every week, or you can watch the replay over on youtube.com/nerdcavenetwork. Come be a part of the show in the comments or in the live chat. We love getting to sit down and chat with people, get their interaction while we talk about all the nerdy news that you need to know. You can go over to youtube.com, go watch it there, and you can go support us at patreon.com/nerdcavenetwork. Become part of the ship, part of the crew, and support us to make more of these awesome shows available. Mm-hmm. Everybody's loving the Weenie Hut Jr.
I know. I see that.
I like it as well. I like it as well. All right, all that jazz, Malone. Let's get into.
Oh, you forgot to say thank our patrons that we already have.
Thank you to all of our patrons. Our first mate, Brandon Hicks, our gunner, Richard Newell, and our deckhands, Martin Sager, Brittany Harrison, and Marilyn James. We appreciate all the support that y'all have given us each and every month. And guys, you can come become part of the ship, part of the crew over there.
I was going to say soon to be ex-first mate, it seems like, Brandon.
Brandon says, now that I have an Xbox, a PS4, I guess I need to switch now. Yeah, you do.
You got to have the triad.
Yeah, the triumvirate.
Or the Triforce.
Yeah, there you go. All right, getting into the news, guys. Geoff Keighley's Summer Game Fest returns in June for the second run.
Yeah, and it's surprising because our next news story it seems like they're going to have like a Clash of the Titans. Like, you thought Godzilla versus Kong was going to be an intriguing matchup. The June showdown is going to be intriguing as well. And I wonder because it technically started in June last year, right? With all the COVID thing, like all these events getting canceled left and right, where the great Geoff Keighley, who puts on a terrific show every year in Game Awards in December, decided to take upon himself, was like, hey, there's no E3, no other game events, I'll create one. And then he created Summer Games Fest. And it was a little too spread out, like too much going on every month, and it doesn't seem like a lot of it was, worthwhile, or, some of it was great. Some of it was like, it shouldn't have had its own event, but I digress. It was something to bring people together in the time of COVID and take their minds off of what was going on. And I've read reports too, where it's like, he's going to try and condense this to just like a single month. So there may be like multiple things throughout the month of June, but he's not going to say, all right, this is going to be in June, July, August, and just keep on going. He's not going to spread this out. He's going to try and keep it condensed this time around.
That's good, because my Lord, it was last summer. It was so spread out. It was so hard to like just be consistently like covering everything, because we didn't have a weekly show then and everything. But
it was just whenever you and I had off and we wanted to cover it.
Yeah. But I'm glad to be more concise. He's a busy guy, like I couldn't see, having to host something all the time and it be so spread out, put it where it needs to be.
Yeah.
And make it concise, cut out the fat. Let the cream rise to the top, as Macho Man Randy Savage once said, and let's get the good stuff. Not saying other things are bad, but we can only take so much.
Well, and you saw like, the industry in and of itself, like just outside Summer's Games Fest, like Ubisoft had another event. that great event that we covered the last time. Microsoft, Sony, like they do so many other events that it's just like we were at like an oversaturation point with events now, because it's like there's only so much you can cover and we can get excited about, with us just being like, all right, can we focus on what's coming out now first, instead of like keep like overloading our our senses.
Yeah, and it's like, don't overpromise, just do it kind of deal, and it takes time for each of these developers to, cut out a vertical slice to be able to show in these showcases and all of that. And that takes away people working on the game. So I'm glad that I'm glad that it's more compact. I'm glad that, we're getting more concise things. And that brings us into our second topic of the day. E3 2021 will be digital show only, confirmed for June 12th through the 15th. Nintendo, Xbox, Capcom, Konami, Ubisoft, Take-Two Interactive, WB Games, and
Koch Media
confirmed to be there. Sony, EA, Sega, Bandai Namco, and Activision Blizzard will not be at E3.
Yeah, so this is going to be interesting. Like, Summer Games Fest hasn't nailed down its release date yet of when they're going to start showcasing items, but E3 has. And those two titans in the same month is going to be interesting to see, because you have Geoff Keighley, a well-known personality and pretty much has stapled himself in the games industry now, versus E3, which, for good or for bad, however you have viewed it over the last couple years to decades, it's still mainstream. Like, people still always tune in to see what's going to happen, regardless of if the event's good or bad. But this being here now, it is surprising. Like, it is, and it's not surprising that Sony's not going to be there. It's not surprising because that's what their MO has been the last couple years for E3 anyway. It is surprising because after taking so many years off and PS5, like, presumably doing well out in the wild, even though you can't find it right now, and them already having like a state of play back in February, which was hit or miss. There were some good things, some good bad things in there, but them not having an E3 presence is kind of still alarming. Maybe they'll still do like a summer thing. Maybe they'll do like their own thing, like, hey, we're not going to be part of E3, but around the same time, we're going to have our own event. But EA not being there is kind of surprising. Activision and Blizzard have never been at E3. They've actually, I shouldn't say never, but they pulled out the last couple of years too. But EA not being there is kind of shocking too, because it's like, we know you have stuff in the pipeline that you want to show that we have not seen anything about. Like, we know Battlefield 6 is hot and heavy getting there at some point. So it's like, why?
Yeah, I like, I'm gonna just bring this up. EA has had its own thing, EA Play, for several years now. So
that's a good point.
They could be doing just that as their own kind of conference thing again, because that was always pre-E3 the last 3-ish years. So I can definitely see that continuing and it just being an online event, maybe more demos that people can play, because they're going to want, to all that stuff. So I think EA is going to do that. I could definitely see a state of play from Sony, since we got one in February. This is going to be in June. That's a good enough time to, kind of roll stuff out, have some good news for people to, to see about Sony. We even made the comment, Sony's not really batting 1,000 with some of the things that they're doing and everything.
And we'll get into that later.
Yeah, but it would be a good way to do it. Microsoft being back in E3 is pretty big, because they had their own kind of thing the last year as well. Yeah,
exactly. So they had a couple, like they had their gameplay showcase where it was like a lot of indie games or whatnot to show off the Series X tech, and wasn't a lot of gameplay, as we both have discussed. But then they had a better one in September, I think, late August, where they showed off like more stuff like people cared about, like well, even though there was a Halo Infinite controversy over what if that was like what kind of graphics that was, but they've, like I said, they had a couple of their own events too. So it's nice to see, and Nintendo being there is huge too. Like 2 of the 3 Titans being there kind of solidifies it. WB Games is interesting because, as we'll also get into later, they've kind of had a rough year in terms of like delays and whatnot, and so it's going to be interesting to see. I guess they figured after these recent string of delays, them being at E3 to basically like remind people and show like updates on what these games look like, it is going to be beneficial for them. It's like, hey, we know we pushed our whole slate back, but here's what to get excited for.
Yeah, and overall, I'm excited for the summer. We'll be
Yeah.
covering a lot of this during the summer and everything. I'm just curious to see how it all shakes out. Always love seeing new games, new announcements, all that awesome stuff. But as we've already established, don't announce something if it ain't ready, and don't
Right.
push it if it's going to be crap. And that moves us into the next
Yeah.
news story. Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga has been delayed out of spring 2021 with no release date given.
Yeah, and this goes back to what I said about WB just a moment ago. They have had a rough year. Like they pushed Hogwarts Legacy back to next year. They pushed back Gotham Knights to next year, and now they just delayed. Which Skywalker Saga has been going through several delays. Like this is not its first rodeo.
Oh yeah,
like it was supposed to come out spring a year ago, and then because of COVID, they had to delay. It was supposed to be like around May-ish, so they delayed it till fall, like around October, and then fall crept up on us, and then it's like we're still not ready, guys. Let's push it back to next spring, and now it's delayed again. And now they haven't given a new release date or any kind of window because they figure, like Prince of Persia, like Far Cry 6 that keeps getting delayed, let's not put a date on it until we know for sure we can hit that date.
Yeah.
It kind of goes back to the go ahead, and I'm sorry.
No, I was just it's the adage that we say all the time, just work on it and get it awesome, then put it out. And like I think WB, like the shareholders, are trying to get money, and that's why they put dates out. But I think Cyberpunk has really scared a lot of publishers overall. So I think this is a good thing. I want a good Lego Star Wars saga, like Skywalker Saga.
Right. And it kind of raises the questions like how intricate is this game going to be? Because we've known, like, sure, like over the last couple of years or the last couple of iterations, like Lego games keep getting bigger and they're trying to innovate. But I know when they announced the Skywalker Saga, they're trying to like revitalize like the Lego formula, it seems like. And like, because they're bringing in, like, they're even adding the new trilogy and possibly, the side films as well, maybe Mandalorian, who knows? Maybe it's such an ambitious project as to why they keep pushing it back. Because I can't. And it's no offense, I love the Lego games, but they don't demand a lot of quality to attention to detail. Like they're polished and they're good, don't get me wrong. It just is not as upscale as say like a Cyberpunk, or let's say like Battlefield or Call of Duty, like a huge AAA game. It doesn't require that same upscale. So it makes me think that they are being really ambitious with this Lego title as to why it keeps getting delayed.
Yeah, the thing that I'm thinking like that could be continually like making this delayed is that they're not just porting over episodes 1 through 6. Like they could even be going back in and redoing all of those levels just so they look and play as well. And like you look at the newer Lego games, they've got dialogue lines in them. The older ones did not. So it could be a very large undertaking instead of just, they're just porting 1 through 6 and then they're putting, 7 came out and then we didn't get an 8 and 9. And so they're doing 8 and 9. So like they're developing a lot of things, and like any Lego game has a ton of depth in it, a lot of things to find, a lot of like it takes a lot of time in that. But I agree with Dan here. Not to mention Lego games don't really have a lot of innovation over time. They haven't really. So this could be them doing something new, because I feel like Lego was at the top for a really long time. And then like I played pretty much every Lego game that came out, and then I slowly stopped playing them because it was just the same thing over and over again. So I could definitely see this being a bigger undertaking than we're fully understanding. And if they are redoing 1 through 6, that is a lot to do, bringing in textures, bringing in voice lines, making sure the controls are up to like the standard that they should be now. So, I think it's going to be awesome. Brandon says you can travel to other planets in this one, like Lego Clone Wars. Oh, okay.
Oh, good. So, and who knows, maybe they'll add in the Clone Wars, because they did do a Lego, they called it Lego Star Wars 3: The Clone Wars. So hopefully they'll bring that over there too. But just to put a pin in this, like as an overarching thing, what a rough, it's not even been technically a calendar year, but what a rough calendar year for WB. Like from Cyberpunk, that whole debacle, to the lawsuits, to all this mess. And now they have to delay their entire 2021 slate of games that we know of, at least. Back a whole year. And it's like, man, like, granted, I think like we keep saying, no one wants to be the next Cyberpunk, and I think that WB themselves are taking that to heart, and it's like, all right, we're going to give y'all an extra year to make sure we don't have this again, or at least not get anywhere close to this mess again. So just take your time, do on it. But man, what a rough, the punches just keep coming for WB, and it's like they're about to be knocked out.
Yeah. And you don't want to be knocked out. Knocked out. Moving on, Apex Legends Season 9 will see a lot of Titanfall content come to the game. Now, I think this is awesome. It is lived in the Titanfall universe, but now seeing more of that being brought into the game, and a lot of people love Apex.
Yeah.
I never got into Apex, but a lot of people love it, and I'm glad to see Titanfall getting some love from Overwatch Respawn.
And, and it makes sense because, while it was weird, they did confirm it's like, hey, Apex takes place after all the events of the Titanfall universe. So it technically is like a shared, like an MCU type universe type thing. It's kind of makes you scratch your head. Like, first of all, for two reasons. One, I can't believe they're on season 9 already, where like it seems like Fortnite just drags their seasons out for long as possible, but they're the kings right now, so they can do what they want. But Apex is already on season 9, and it's been out since what, 2019? Yeah, like shorter time, but much faster turnaround for their seasons. But two, and I'm not, maybe I'm speaking out of pocket here, but why did it take them so long to do like a Titanfall event? Like, did you feel I can understand if you wanted to establish Apex as like your own, as its own universe, as its own thing right away, and not just immediately jump into Titanfall and like skew those fans' expectations right away. At the same time, why did you wait till season 9 to do something with Titanfall?
Like, I feel like Titanfall is loved by a certain amount of people, and then it is not really known that much about by others. Like, if you're a gamer, you probably have heard of Titanfall, but you might not have played it. And like the second one is much better than the first one, because like it was just more robust, having the single player and all of that explored a lot of things. It was very interesting. So I think, I think they didn't want to take a chance of muddying the water anytime soon, when this was EA's cash cow for a very long time, and still is making a good bit of money off of it. But it's like, okay, now that we've got the people that are going to stick around and play Apex, and we know that some of these people are Titanfall fans, let's now bring it in. We're not afraid to lose anybody off of this, because it's already established. So I think that's where a lot of it comes from.
And I guess that makes sense, because you've seen it with Fortnite, right? Like, granted, they don't have like an established or a shared universe, but we saw after a while, like, people like, hey, I'm tired of the same map, and then they blew up and added in, I don't want to say redid the map, but they brought in a new map for Fortnite, and they're going wild with all these skins from other franchises too. So now that's just a staple. So that was just to bring in a new influx of cash for Fortnite. So hopefully this does the same. Looking at an article though from what I posted this, there's a quote that says, next season 9, you're actually going to see a ton of Titanfall coming back into the game in one way or another. And it goes on to say, Respawn had previously said Titans won't be added into the experience, but we could see a lot of enemy types from the campaign and wildlife jump into the experience. It's kind of, it wouldn't make sense. Like, people are probably going to be upset. It's like, oh, why can't you put Titans in there if it's not Titanfall without the Titans? Yeah, I could see them going to like a part of the map that has like Titan skeletons, like old skeletons of like past Titans, like, and them being in like the environment. But it doesn't make sense for a game like Apex to like all of a sudden like, oh, drop a Titan down and like get in it, because it's not going to be. It just doesn't make sense stylistically. But seeing enemies and like the wildlife show up, like those big, I don't even know what you want to call them, but those like with those long legs, like, those are always, it'll be intriguing to see what they do with it. But people wishing it's just going to be a Titanfall clone, I'm sorry to say, just go play Titanfall 2.
Yeah, and we saw with Fortnite, it was probably a year ago, that they added mechs into the game for a portion of time, and people hated it in Fortnite.
Yeah.
And because it changes the whole dynamic of the game. It's not, like they're always overpowered. Anytime you add something new, it's going to be
Right.
overpowered. And a Titan to begin with is really powerful. So like it would, like, it just doesn't fit with it. So I'm definitely like okay with them not putting it in there. They might, make a mode where they can do it. And it might be a way for them to explore, are people interested in a Titanfall 3? That might be what they're going.
That's also because, before Apex took off like it did, there was speculation that Titanfall 3 was in development. And then there was this whole back and forth of like, oh, it's not. And then EA put it back in Respawn's court. It's like, oh, it's up to them if they want to do Titanfall 3. And now it's like, okay, guys. Yeah. And now with Apex taking off, I do think you're right. I think this is like a soft beta for basically like this to get the wheels turning on if there's still a market not a market base, fan base for Titanfall to do a Titanfall 3. So hey, if it comes of that, cool. I'm down for that.
Yeah. Dan says, I never really got to play Titanfall. The first one was a lot of fun, but it was just completely online multiplayer.
Yeah.
The second one had a really good story. I need to go back and finish it. I got almost to the very end of it. A lot of like, it definitely made you think. Shaking your head at me, boy. Look at your backlog. It was definitely like one of the kind of a thinking man shooter. It wasn't just like I'm just gonna shoot. Like you had to plan things out. The traversal through the story and everything was really, really cool. So highly suggested, especially if you got like Game Pass or something like that.
Oh yeah, or EA Play.
Yeah, EA Play or EA Origin. I'm gonna skip down the list since EA is on here again. EA has patented a difficulty system that adjusts to keeping you playing longer. I like this. I think some people are like, oh, I don't know about that, but I'm taking it as a good thing. I'm taking it as a good thing. I haven't read the article, so I don't know if this is a Call of Duty Activision thing where, oh, you got killed by this person. Here's their loadout, and this is how much it costs, that sort of deal. I don't like that.
Yeah.
If it is a difficulty system where, okay, let's say my youngest nephew is playing an EA game, whatever it might be, Need for Speed. Okay. And the cops are just demolishing this kid that's 7. And the game's like, okay, this person's really struggling at it. Instead of something popping up, hey, change the difficulty, it starts scaling back the AI so they can be more successful.
Right.
And it can also go with the other way where you're playing Fallen Order and it's like, man, this guy's just tearing through all of these enemies. Let's up the challenge just a little bit and make it more challenging. So it's being smart with it. But if they're using it to make people spend money or that sort of deal, I don't necessarily like it. But if it's just a way to like make the game more enjoyable, because there's always been Prototype 1. I got to the final boss and I could not beat that stupid boss because it was so flipping hard. If they would have had that in place, I would have been able to beat that boss. I never finished that game because of that boss. And that's just, case in point, like there are a lot of games that people get frustrated because they keep hitting that wall. Some people like the Dark Soul kind of stuff. I don't.
Me either. So, and like I've got the article pulled up here. It's like, it's an adaptive difficulty system that dynamically adjusts how difficult a game is. But as also revealed by EA's patent application, the system does this with an aim to keep players active for longer periods of time. And, it goes on to say, like, it monitors enemy behavior, how the player adapts and plays and whatnot. The system can, quote, review historical user activity data with respect to one or more video games to generate a game retention prediction model. This model is then used to predict how long the user is expected to play for. Using this prediction, the dynamic difficulty system can calibrate the challenge to make sure you play for that duration. So it kind of goes to like, so there's good and bad with this, right? So the good is basically like, it tailors it to your experience. It basically like, hey, if you don't play for like short spurts, like an hour or two at a time, we're going to adjust the difficulty so you can get through and meet this checkpoint you want to go to. for people who play a whole weekend, they tailor it to there. So that's good because then it tailors, it's more for the time consumers or like for people who don't have that much time to play. Here's where the difficulty comes in for me. One is it'll give EA an out to include microtransactions. Basically, it's like, oh, you don't have a lot of time. It's not scaling to your liking. Buy this booster to basically increase, like speed up your playtime or get more experience or do that. That's the crux of that. And for me, what also is a downturn is like sometimes I play games on like story-based games on lower difficulties to enjoy the story first, and then if it intrigues me enough, I go back and play it on higher up difficulties. So if you're scaling it to it and I'm getting my butt beat, maybe I don't want to do that right now. Maybe I wanted to just like use this PlayStation to beat this boss and be done with it. And if you're going to make it harder for me, it's like, no, please don't because then that'll for me, if I get beat enough, I'll just put it down and maybe not ever go back to it,
Yeah, like I definitely could see that. And maybe it's a feature that you can either pick from, easy, normal, hard, legendary, whatever they're going to call it, or you can turn on the adaptive thing, and it has its own.
Like there's a switch to like have an option to turn it on or off.
Yeah. And I agree with you 100%. Like if this is used to monetize and sell more microtransactions, then they know where they can put this system because EA is notoriously bad about trying to get in your wallet. And like this system can be something that is really good. It could be something that, could make the games more enjoyable. But if it is something that is just used to monetize and sell more junk, then, it's like, I don't want anything to do with that. But if it is used in the right way to make gaming more enjoyable, I'm all for that. Just like if it was somebody else, okay? Let's say let's say if it's none of the third parties, I would trust it way more.
Like if this was Sony,
if it was Sony, Nintendo, or even Microsoft, I would trust it. But if it's Activision, if it's Ubisoft, or if it's EA, I don't really trust them that much.
No. And I was just going to say it's ironic because it's EA, and they were like the I don't want to say they started this, but they got heavy into the monetization. So it was. We all remember Battlefront 2.
Yep, and they've even been in court cases over in the United Nations and all United Kingdom and all that. United Nations. What is that off of? Oh, that's Halo. Never mind. That's Halo. The UNSC.
But and I was gonna say too, the getting the people to play the game longer, they're just adding this tail on so people don't move on from it fast or trade it in to GameStop or whatnot. Because with season passes and free content updates and live service game, this is just an add to a longer tail to a franchise's game too. So it's a better way to do that rather than just like keep adding stuff that you have to pay for or low expectations for live service games, as mainly me have complained about in the past. But say la vie.
UN, that's serious. Yeah. Moving on. We're going to be in the rumor mill, guys. So this is where all the rumors come from. Remedy is working with Sony on PlayStation exclusive title.
Yeah, so it goes off because, last week we talked about the rumor that they're partnering with Epic Games and working on a sequel to Alan Wake and bring it to multiplat. I read the article too in it, and it says like Remedy has like up to 5 projects going on right now. So they've kind of blown up over the last couple of years. I mean, rightfully so after Alan Wake, this little small indie hit, or it's not an indie hit per se, but that's what got their feet wet. Quantum Break, it was great. But they really took off with Control. Like Control, like obviously blew them up the most because it was multiplat. But who knows? Like there's been rumors that Alan Wake could be remastered and be put on PS4 and then probably the Xbox as well. I know it's right now from 360 available via Game Pass, but they could remaster and put it on both the current gen systems. Then of course, like we said, the Alan Wake sequels in development. And it only makes sense that a PlayStation exclusive. This next one's going to be PlayStation exclusive because their first 2 was Xbox exclusive, and while Control was their first multiplat, they had PlayStation exclusive content on the PlayStation version of Control. Like you got the DLCs first, and some exclusive skins came first to the PlayStation, and then Xbox got them later. So this is on track to prove that, hey, Sony, we like you. Maybe we should do a deal with you this time.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like, okay, we worked with Microsoft for so long, and like neither Alan Wake nor Quantum Break, they rhyme. I just noticed that.
Yeah.
Neither one of them like did gangbusters, like I don't feel like Microsoft handled them very well because they don't fit into the mold that was Microsoft at the time. I think Microsoft, if it was coming out now, they would handle it way better. But they were more in that they were still, especially Alan Wake, but they were still in like Gears and Halo mode.
Yeah.
Quantum Break, I think they were just trying to survive at that point because it was at the launch of the console. So they didn't really like, I don't think they knew how to market that kind of like cerebral kind of storytelling that, and Quantum Break was very different, like very different because it had the episodes and all of that kind of deal. So it was a very, it was just different. Like it was really cool.
Yeah, and I mean, it was arguably my favorite I know everyone loves Sunset Overdrive, but it was my favorite original Xbox IP from last generation because of the TV show, because it gave more insight into the villain, and if you found the collectibles, it would affect like how certain scenes would play out, or maybe you didn't get a scene if you didn't find this collectible in the game for a TV show, and it really added and made the villain more sympathetic. But the gameplay, I like time bending, like I'm not huge into the timey-wimey stuff like you and Amy are, but I do appreciate it. And it had its own niche, and it definitely did some things like I loved it, but I could see why it wasn't like widespread, appreciated, because everyone's like, TV, blah, 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 that was during Xbox's dogs TV sports shtick. So
and it's just, I'm curious to see, like, they did multi-platform and now they're wanting to not. So I'm curious to see like if they do something that is more widespread and then have a PlayStation exclusive title or not. But it leads me into this next one. Somebody that's from the PlayStation side is now flirting with the Microsoft side. Hideo Kojima is in talks with Microsoft to publish his next game. It's like well, PlayStation, you talking about honey? Well, I'm gonna talk to your honey.
Right, exactly. Tradesies. But no, and it makes sense because during the Bethesda roundtable thing that they did last month, when the acquisition was finalized, they had a big, powwow. It's like welcoming in everyone and talking about like the new additions to Game Pass from previous titles. But then, everyone speculated, when Phil Spencer chimed in, there was a shot, everyone loves to like, Phil Spencer was like the t-shirts. And I think, who was the guy, not for Sony before he retired?
Sean Layden?
Yeah, Sean Layden, he would do the t-shirts as well. But since they've been doing this work at home thing, they've been trying to hide things in the background to tease people, about those stuff's in the works, guys. And there was a statue of Death Stranding figure on the back desk behind Phil Spencer during this powwow, and everyone speculated, oh, Death Stranding is going to come to Xbox, so maybe that's one of the projects in the works. But this, I shouldn't say this is a bad thing, right? Because after the split with Konami, Kojima was just a freelancer. Like, he's owned to no one. Like, I know Sony was the first one to approach him, like, hey, we want to do a game with you. So I think Kojima's enjoying his freedom of not being tied to one studio or one entity, and basically just saying like, all right, who wants to help me do this next project? Who wants me? So while it's I don't want to say sucks. It definitely is weird that he's going to Xbox, but it makes sense for Kojima because he just wants to be his own man.
Yeah, and I 100% agree. Like, he is not going to tie himself down. He's essentially, he's like an artist back in the day where they were looking for their patron to support their art, and PlayStation funded Death Stranding. And now he's looking, hey, Microsoft, and it's going to make PlayStation be like, hey, well, hold on now. We got money for you,
Right.
So,
Right.
I think it's a good thing. I'm not worried about it, regardless.
Yeah.
I think, whatever games comes out of it is going to be flipping weird.
You're right. That
but-
man's mind is like basically an acid trip.
Yeah. But I'm glad that he is not tied down to Kojima anymore, and I'm glad that he's getting to do what he wants to do. So, curious to see where this goes. But let's move on to some interesting news. The PS5 and Xbox Series X GPU global shortage issue partly to blame on the lack of parts that cost $1. Yeah.
So the curtain gets peeled back a little bit now with this, right? Because it's like Bloomberg reported this, and it's like the ongoing shortage of PS5 and Xbox GPU components have been partly blamed on a series of smaller parts, some of which cost just $1 to manufacture. The display drivers and power management chip are two of the main parts responsible for holding up worldwide production. While the report also sheds light on why the storage is occurring in the first place, shortage in the first place. For starters, manufacturers believed that the lockdown would result in fewer demand for computer-related products, whereas the complete opposite happened. In addition, some components are being produced using outdated production methods, and there's been a considerable boom in the variety and volume of devices that require chips that previously didn't. It's when I first read this, I'm just like, it's $1. Like, how hard is it to come across something that cheap? But at the same time, if everyone's buying it up and buying it in bulk, and supply cannot meet demand. So in this instance, like, the cheaper it is, the harder it is to find because everyone's trying to get their hands on it. So it makes sense in that regard. But it's like, man, it's kind of worse than what we thought.
Yeah, if it's the cheapest part that is keeping up production, that's pretty bad. And if they're using methods, like it was saying in the article, that these are methods of production that are really outdated, it might behoove other people to invest in like ways to better make this part so this isn't happening. And Louis said in the chat, that's why I don't buy the first generation. A lot of times the first generation has a ton of problems and scarcity and all of that kind of deal. I know once the scarcity kind of goes down and some of the issues go away, as soon as I can get my hands on a PlayStation 5, that's something I'm going to do. But I think, with this being an issue, like, it is going to be something that the companies, Microsoft, Sony, that they're going to have to do something to alleviate it. It might be, them investing in some manufacturers of these parts, something to make this an easier thing, because if they invest in it, then they can make more specifically for their consoles, and they're not having to spend time like, oh, well, Apple's getting these parts. Sorry, guys. Or, oh, well, Nintendo got these, these 10,000 models or whatever, of this, it's like they put the money down and then it's like, okay, these are all yours. You own this whole factory or whatever it is. Like, I think that might be the best way to do it.
And this kind of goes back to, now, I didn't see it reported anywhere else. This is not I think this is just mild speculation at this point, and I have my own ideas, which I'll get into in just a second. But I saw something a couple days ago that said now they're speculating, because of the chip shortage, that it could be mid next year before we get consoles again. And it's like, first, like, which is concerning. But what I think they're getting at is going into a store any day of the week, any time of the day, and being able to get one at any point. I cannot see in a world where we go through an entire holiday and there's no systems to get. Like, if they just do online bundles, like, that's going to be terrible, but so be it. Microsoft and Sony are not going to miss out on a holiday season by not having consoles. It's just it's just bad business, and they're taking money out of their own pocket.
Yeah, if you've got to throw down, say 10 million to secure your your chips and all of that, you've invested, you own a factory or whatever, boom, that's an easy write-off. That is an easy write-off for any company, and you're guaranteeing that, hey, we're not going to have this problem again. This part will never be a problem again. And then if they're making so many, they're like, hey, you know, we'll sell them to Microsoft or whatever. Like,
Right.
you can do a lot of things. So I think they've got to get out of like a very short-sighted mentality. It's
Right.
like, you know, this can be solved if, you know, money talks. Money
Yep.
talks, everybody.
Oh yeah.
And it's all about business. It's all about business.
All about the Benjamins.
Moving on, continuing to talk about PlayStation and some PlayStation, shame on you. PS Now's latest games, Borderlands 3's and Avengers, don't let you grab a free PS5 upgrade. So I know Avengers has a PS5 version of it. Does Borderlands 3 as well?
Yes, and see this is a twofold thing, right?
Mhm.
This is only magnified by the fact that Borderlands 3 and Avengers has free upgrades. Now, if it was Black Ops Cold War, right? Or NBA 2K21, those, because they're higher price for next gen or for PS5 Series X, they have to make, like, he's like, they basically make it to where it's like you can keep the disc, but you have to pay $10 for the true upgrade. Whereas a lot of games like Valhalla, Avengers, Borderlands, they're all like, hey, if you own the PS4 version, you have the PS5 version now as well. You just got to put the disc in or whatever. Or if you buy it digital, you get the free upgrade to that. That's magnified by that because those are free upgrades and you can't automatically get those. And then it's only magnified more when Xbox, if you have Game Pass, whatever games they put on there, when they upgrade it to the Series X version, you get the upgrade automatically, even if you have it via Game Pass. Like, Sony, what are you doing? Like, like we already had and it already is not. It didn't help from last month, right? When after, or a couple months ago, after they had their State of Play, and then they came out the next day and be like, hey, Final Fantasy VII Remake is going to be the free plus game of March. And then they said, oh, but you're not going to get the free PS5 upgrade when it comes out. And now this with PlayStation Now, their streaming service, which they're trying to market as, like, I don't think it'll get to Game Pass level, but they're trying to make it compete with Game Pass in certain ways. It's not helping their case.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like, if they're trying to compete with Game Pass, they're doing it all in the wrong ways because I know we have talked about on this show that Game Pass is the best bang for your buck as a gamer. You're getting day and day games. You're getting the best versions of them, whatever you're on. And them doing this is such a greedy move. This, like we were talking about earlier, this is a PlayStation 3 Sony. This is not a PlayStation 4 Sony where it was about the gamers. And I know we've got totally different people in power now. You know, a lot of people retired. They you know, they stood their watch on the wall and all of that kind of deal. Now they're retired and they're in their homes, you know, just enjoying things. But it is clear that they are all about money. 100%. And I think that is to their degradation because Xbox is all about the gamers. And that is why Xbox is making such headway on Sony. Like, Sony, amazing last gen, you know, sold over 100 million units because they focused on the gamer. Xbox didn't start out that way. It did turn into that.
And now there are a lot of pro consumer choices.
And this right here is telling us what Sony is going to be like for the next 5-10 years. And that's kind of scares me. Not scares me. It kind of concerns me more. That they would make these kind of decisions. And I know they're trying to, you know, get their money and all of this, but if it's in there, if people are paying for PS Now and they've got a PlayStation 5, that should be a free upgrade. It is not charging them. Like, Sony isn't losing any money because of this. It should be automatic.
Exactly, especially like what I said a moment ago. Those versions, or those two games in particular, are free upgrades. Again, if it was Cold War that you have to charge $10 for the actual upgrade, that's fine. I understand that 100% because you know, they have a deal where it's like we need to make more money. But if you're giving your game the upgraded version away for free, like, you should just be given that. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I know this is like we're old men yelling at clouds wanting free stuff. You know, it's just what our generation does, Zach. We don't want to work. We just want free stuff handed to us. But so be it. Like if it is what it is. Hopefully they'll change their mind on this. And it doesn't help that I think Jim Ryan is like now the current head of Sony, or like he's in the Sean Layden position.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't help that we don't know when this will happen, but it didn't come out. It doesn't help that, what was it, December, January, he came out and said, yeah, we're working on a thing to compete with Game Pass. And like he's kind of backtracked and said, maybe that's not the case so much, but it's like, this isn't helping your case if you are planning to try and come for Xbox's throat.
No, it is, for me, like we both love Sony. Like there's no escaping that. Yep. But we cannot overlook the amazing job that the Xbox people are doing, and like this
game recognizes game.
Yeah. Like this does not have any Shuhei all over this. Like there's no Shuhei full of grace on this. Like Shuhei shames this. And I'm speaking for Shuhei right now.
Yeah. whether he will admit it or not, Shuhei he's shaking his head.
He's shaking his head. He's not smiling. And if you've ever seen Shuhei not smile, then it's an unholy thing.
Go watch the documentary on the 2018 God of War. Corey Barlog said he was petrified because Shuhei was not liking what he was doing in the beginning.
But moving on to a company that we don't really hear that much about these days, but there have been some rumors circulating the last year or so. Atari is set to develop a console game aimed at revitalizing classic Atari IP.
Yeah, and they've got a thing like they're shifting their brand. Like I got an article here. It says it has announced it will split up the divisions of its company with Atari Blockchain and Atari Gaming. The latter will help the company shift into developing console and PC games that have the goal of, quote, revitalizing classic Atari intellectual property for the modern era. The shift will happen alongside the continued development of free-to-play mobile games. The company said that these, quote, new releases will share the classics' instant enjoyability while introducing a meaningful single-player campaign, couch co-op multiplayer, and online play.
Hey, I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Because we've seen, like, when Nintendo was doing, like, the NES, SNES Classic, PlayStation put out the PS1 Classic. Atari, like, what people forget, like, Sega's done classic systems, like, with the games bundled in with it automatically. Atari did several versions. Like, there was like a couple years where they just put out, like, here's an Atari Classic with these games on here, and then the next year they did it with some different games. So I think Atari's like, hey, people love what we used to put out on a regular basis. And, they have the 3 volumes of like the Atari flashback classics on PS4 and Xbox One out in the wild too. And I think people are like, hey, let's see if they'll like our new blood. Let's take these old franchises and put some new blood into them. So this brings me to like Resident Evil Remake or like remasters, like Shadow of the Colossus Remake. Demon Souls remake. Like, I think they're going to take established IP and rather than just port them over, they're going to remake them and see if they can get a new player base out of these.
Yeah, just looking at a few of these, like when you think of Atari, you're like, these are old games. Like that's the ones that I come up with. But these are like the classic games. We got Asteroid, Missile Command, Pong, Centipede, Yar's Revenge, Breakout, Super Breakout, Tempest, Gravatar, Warlords, Pac-Man, Star Raiders, Space Invaders, Real Sports Football, Night Driver, Air to Sea Battle, Millipede, Demons to Diamonds. Trying to see like any other ones that pop out, but there's a lot of Frogger. There are a lot of things like all of these like space whatever like Space Invaders or what, like you could do so many things. Like I the only problem with like bringing some of these classic games back are people gonna be like, that ain't my
right.
You know what I mean?
I mean, you're always gonna have that regardless, which I mean, fair point. At the same time, probably not for you then, but this is for a new audience,
Get on, geezer. Get
right. Go hook back up your analog TV and play it then.
Yeah, go play Pong, old man.
But you forgot about the greatest Atari game in existence, E.T.
Oh. I doubt that we see E.T. I highly doubt that we see E.T.
I do too. So
all right, guys, there is our topics of discussion. Now we're fixing to move into our weekly segment called The Quick Hits with Derek.
Mm-hmm.
Derek, are you ready? You got your speed bag up. You've been working out the shoulders. You've been sniffing your thumb before you hit.
I don't know what sniffing my thumb has to do, but
like when you're like you before you
like
start boxing, all that.
Ready to shadow box,
Yeah.
All
right.
Okay, so a lot of quick hits here. So the first one, and this was an interesting thing I saw earlier this week, a sealed copy of the original Super Mario Brothers shatters world record, selling for $660,000. Which means possible that old retro video games can go up to $1 million at some point. I want to see who the first $1 million video game is going to be.
DT.
God no. Everybody's Golf developer ends 22 years of PlayStation exclusivity with new golf game called Clap Hands with a Z Golf, releasing on Apple Arcade. Resident Evil Village will have a photo mode, kind of a duh thing. It was like, why wouldn't you have it? And that's followed by Resident Evil will have another showcase. They had one back in January to kind of first show off Village. They're going to have another showcase right before their May release on April 15th. That is 1 week from today. Layers of Fear, which is an interesting psychological horror game that came out a few years ago on PS4, is coming to PSVR on April 29th. That is also 3 weeks from today. As we talked about earlier, Overwatch's Archives event is returning, or has returned now. Started on Tuesday and will be going till April 27th. So you have about 3 weeks to get your skins that you want, guys. Fall Guys is adding the Shovel Knight outfit on April 10th. That is this Saturday, 2 days from today.
What?
So they made it. They didn't. From what I read, they made it sound like it's not going to be free. They will charge something for this. It's only feasible if you get another property into a different game. They're going to want money for it. No shock. We talked about last week, MLB The Show 21 is coming to Game Pass on day one. And that apparently was not Sony's decision. It was MLB's decision. So, we kind of talked about how MLB, when the deal was up, is like, hey, you guys at San Diego do great work, but we want to put it to other platforms. So if you want to keep this contract, you got to do that. So Sony played ball. And now it seems like they also made this decision for Sony. It's like, hey, we're going to put this on Game Pass. That cool? Cool. But I think it's going to be, like we talked about last week too, it's like, this is just to test the waters and see how big of a fan base there is going to be for Xbox for a baseball game. And then next year it's going to be like, hey, we're not going to put it on Game Pass day one. You're going to have to pay for it this time.
Yeah.
We'll put it on Game Pass later, but not day one. Microsoft, for their Game Pass Cloud, like mobile phone devices, is adding touch controls to 50 plus games. Now, they started with this when Minecraft Dungeons came out, or there was I don't want to say when it came out, but when it was the first game that did the touch controls on the cloud devices. But they're adding more now because it was successful. Some of the games are going to be Slay the Spire, Sea of Thieves, Spiritfarer, Gears 5, Tell Me Why, Desperados 3, Dead Cells, Donut County, Dragon Quest XI, Echoes of an Elusive Age, and more. GTA 5, speaking of Game Pass, GTA 5 is coming back to Game Pass. It was taken off May of last year, but today is coming to Game Pass with Zombie Army 4 Dead War, which that's the only relevance to that is because it seems like they're having a bidding war now because this month it's the Zombie Army 4 is the free PS Plus game for PlayStation Plus subscribers. So you have your pick of the poison. If you have PS Plus, you can get this for free. If you have Game Pass, you can get this for free. So have fun with it. There's an interesting thing that happened, I think, yesterday that, we confirmed last week, I believe, that Sony, as of July 2nd, Sony will close the PS3, PSP, and PS Vita stores. There's now been a petition by fans to save those stores. good on them. Mate, I don't think anything will come of it. My personal opinion, petitions don't hold the same weight that they used to back in the day. Some will be effective. Most of them aren't. I don't see this I think Sony, as we've seen over the last couple months, once they stick to their guns, unless it is a blasphemous or terrible, they're not going to change it.
Yeah, they're not like Xbox.
No, exactly. EA Sports, as we also talked about last week, EA Sports is bringing back their PGA Tour games. And, they talked about some of the events like the US Open, I think the FedEx Cup as well. And I brought up the fact of like, where's the Masters tournament? Well, my question has been answered. They gained exclusive rights to the Masters tournament at the Augusta National Golf Club. And that's exclusive. That means like 2K can't get a hold of it, or Golf Club or whoever. Basically, EA owns the Masters tournament for their games going forward. And the last one that was kind of a surprise shadow drop yesterday, Pac-Man 99 is available now on the Nintendo Switch, free to those who have a Switch Online membership. What is Pac-Man 99? It is pretty much, for those who don't remember, Tetris 99 came out and they had the same deal where if you owned an online membership, you got it, but it's a Tetris Battle Royale. This is a Pac-Man Battle Royale against 99 other players.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Glad to see Atari putting Pac-Man out there.
Yeah.
Getting him out there. Just like, hey, let's go do something. And
Nintendo has really done because, they don't they have Fortnite and Apex now, but they don't really get into the battle royale genre too much. But this is a unique thing for them to do because with Tetris 99, they did Mario 35, which was a battle royale Mario game, and now they're doing Pac-Man 99. So Nintendo's like, you know what? We're not going to get all the other. We understand that not all battle royales can run in our system, so we're going to do our own or get rights to our own.
Yeah, I think it's awesome, and
yeah.
There to the petition saving the PS3, PSP, and the Vita. All I gotta say, guys, is this one thing. I didn't want to interrupt Derek.
Yeah.
We'll go to the one. The Vita lives. The Vita lives.
In our hearts. That's all. That's what it's going to.
At least in our hearts. Guys, we hope that you enjoyed our episode today. Make sure you can watch us live over on twitch.tv/NerdCave Network. You can join in the chat, talk about all the discussions that we're doing and everything. Chime in, put your 2 cents in, all those good things. Or you can go watch us over on youtube.com/NerdCave Network. Support us there. Hit the subscribe, hit the follow on Twitch. And if you want to see more awesome shows like this, you can go support us over on patreon.com/NerdCave Network. Toss a few dollars, make the light stay on, get Derek on full time. We can quit all of our jobs.
Right.
All of
them.
Never
have to go hungry again.
Nope, never. Or eat beanie weenies. Guys, we hope that you enjoyed it. Make sure to stick around on all of our live streams that we do. Tomorrow will be our next live stream. But guys, thank you for watching this one. This has been Zach.
And Derek.
That ain't your name, boy.
Smooth Jazz Malone.
All that Jazz Malone. All that Jazz Malone.
Smooth Jazz sounds better.
Okay, whatever. Star-Patron 3000. This has been Zach.
And Derek.
Y'all have a blessed week. Bye.